Now that the Zoom lady has given us permission to start, we'll start.
Yeah, mate.
Welcome, Darren, aka DAZ Brookes, longtime guitarist of British death metal institution Benediction. Welcome to Inner Strength Check podcast, where we talk all things music, art, hobbies, and mental health. Darren, how are things going over there at the moment?
Really good, mate. The sun's out, so it's a bit of a shock to the system today. But yeah, it's all
Wow.
good.
Okay, that's interesting. We've had a bit of a role reversal here today. It's been muggy and grey, a little bit British over here, but
Yeah,
maybe
stole
that's
your son, man.
the chaos theory in action because we're having an interview across the ocean, across the pond. So
Yeah, mate.
yeah, nice sunny day. How's everything been in general? Because you guys are really gearing up with a lot of stuff going on at the moment. You've got Ravage of Empires coming out soon. You're looking at
Yeah.
some big tours that are already locked in, some big festival shows. What's the ambient temperature, if we're going to use weather metaphors, of
Yeah, well,
the band?
it's kind of boiling up, and we'll ride the storm, as they say. We're really looking forward to the next 12 months, 2 years. It's going to be super busy.
Mm.
As you said, the album comes out next week, I think. We're getting some killer reviews, albums of the month in various magazines. I mean, that's a good start straight away.
Mm, mm.
Tour starts next week. The first time we've been in a tour bus for 20 years because we're
Wow.
too old for that stuff now. We mostly do festivals and weekend gigs, but I
Mm.
thought it was about time we took the animal out. So we're really looking forward to that.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's all real good, man. It's all really good.
That's fantastic. And I've been flogging the album, I'll be honest. I'm loving it.
Good, man. Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate it.
and I can see why it's received a lot of critical acclaim. It's an interesting one to have you guys launching an album in the current kind of death metal environment where a lot of modern death metal is about being as experimental and progressive as possible. Whereas
Mm,
you guys, Ravage of Empires, to me, it's smack bang classic old school death metal, and it's fantastic. Like I hear a lot of hints of LED aside, Vader, Slayer, those kinds of things.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but also I note that the production's really good too. Scott Atkins seems to have done a really good job on the production there because it's got that crispness, but still has a kind of a raw
Yeah,
tone to
it's
it.
it's a difficult mix to get because you've got to get the old school feel, but with the
Mm,
modern sort of technology. I mean, our music is not necessarily the same death metal as other bands, just a wall of noise. As it's kind of key that you can hear the riffs, you can hear the picking, and the drums fit along to it. So you've got to kind of get a crisp mix on the album, but still keep that raw energy. And Scott
mm,
seems to nail that every time. So I mean, he
mm.
did he did a cracking job on the last album, so there was no reason to go anywhere else for this, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah. If the shoe fits, right? If it ain't broke,
Absolutely, mate.
yeah.
It's the same with the music, you know. That's why we haven't necessarily progressed. We do what we do. We do benediction
Mm,
music. We were one of the first people to do this kind of music, and that's what we do. We don't want to be inventing the wheel. We don't want to be the next big thing. We don't want to be breaking barriers down anymore. We did that 30 years ago.
yeah.
So this is what we do. We feel we're fairly decent at it. So there's no need
Mm,
to make any changes. We like what
mm.
we do, and it's us that's got to stand on stage and play the stuff. So we want to play stuff that we enjoy doing. I ain't necessarily following any patterns, or I'm not putting
Mm.
blast beats in because everybody tells you to put blast beats in. I'm not getting a keyboard or a female singer because it'll sell an extra 10,000 copies. I couldn't give
Mm.
a toss about any of that. I just want to play the best benediction we can play, and I think we've nailed it with this album. To be fair.
Absolutely. And after so many years of playing your trade with that old school death metal template that you guys have a huge hand in originating essentially, do you find with writing a new album with the songwriting process, what's that like for you guys being such like a you've had some lineup changes, but
Yeah.
especially for yourself and Peter as long-term members and Dave coming back in the fold, how did you find the songwriting process for Ravage?
Well, the songwriting process over the years has changed a lot. I mean, back in the day, we'd go into a recording room with a microphone hanging in the middle of the room. We'd record a load of shit. I'd bring it home, and then I'd try and figure out what we're playing because it was just a wall of noise. As you can
Yeah.
imagine, a microphone in the middle of a rehearsal room, it was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Mm.
So now a lot of it's done on computer, and the other problem we get is our drummers in Italy, our singers in Denmark, our bass players in London. We're in the Midlands. we're all over the place, so we don't actually get to physically rehearse or physically write together. So
Mm,
Rui Peter, he'll sit at home on his computer and he'll just put a drum machine on it and he'll just blast out riff after riff and he'll send them over to me. Then
mm,
I've got my computer set up here. I'll see what he's playing. I'll see what I can pick out of the mess, and then
mm,
I'll bang some of my riffs together. And it's almost like baking a cake. He'll send me ingredients over. I've got my
mm,
ingredients in my pot here. I'll sort of like bake the cake, and then we send it across to Dave, and then Dave puts the icing on with the vocals.
mm,
And then they send it back to me, and I make cuts, whether it needs shortcuts or lengthening and whatever else. It's a long process, but the
mm,
good thing about Benediction is because we only write one style of music, we got a bucket load of riffs, a bucket load of ideas. We don't struggle to come up with stuff. But on
mm,
the other side of the coin, we don't just accept anything that we write. That's why sometimes it takes a little bit longer. We've got a bucket full of riffs. Again, a cupboard full of ingredients. We got all of that stuff.
mm,
We just need to pick the right stuff and put it together. And I guess that's my job as the chef.
mm. So really, I guess if we're leaning into this metaphor, it's like you could go out and slap together. You could go grab a cheap cake from Tesco or something like that.
Yeah,
But you guys are still invested in making. No, we want to make sure we know it's the same tried and true cheesecake, Black Forest cheesecake we've been
yeah,
handing
mate.
out. But
Yeah,
every
you got it.
time we want to make sure, the icing's right, the mix is
Yeah.
good.
Well,
So
mate, once the cake's on the shelf, you can't take it back. You know what I mean? Once it's
yeah.
there, and everybody's seen it, everybody's listened to it, it's there. So we need to
Mm,
make sure that when we put that out and we listen to it in 10 years' time, we still enjoy it. And again, because Benediction only writes one kind of music, a bunch of these songs could have easily been on Transcend the Rubicon, and a bunch of Transcend the Rubicon songs could have been on this because we don't change so much. It's just a tried and tested process.
mm. Do you and Peter feel like you've had any other influences that you've drawn from in your time in writing, or do you feel like it's just been very consistent, very much your own
I
thing?
think in the early days, obviously, because there wasn't death
Mm,
metal when we first started, we were drawn from the heavy metal side, the priests and Motorheads and Saxons. Mix that with our punk upbringing, because the
mm,
Midlands had a big punk scene, so we kind
mm,
of fused all that together. And then you had the speed metal that was just before us, so it was kind of
mm,
fusion of all of that sort of stuff. I think
mm,
over time, I think we're more influenced by our own career, by what we've done in the past and what we've experienced. I don't
mm,
necessarily listen to any new stuff. I'm a bit disillusioned with new death metal. It's all about speed and it's all about how many notes I can play. Rather than writing songs, it's almost as if they're trying to show off what they can do. And I think that the essence of songwriting is kind of dying a little bit. I
mm,
still prefer the old, Entombed and
mm,
Master and Massacre. Just simple riffs that grab you and knock you about and then just leave you in a
mm,
pile on the floor. I prefer
mm,
that rather than just go to a show and listen to six bands do 45-minute sets of just pure noise.
mm,
It kind of gets a bit repetitive and boring. So we kind of
mm.
mix it up a bit, speed it up, slow it down.
Yeah, yeah. So you feel like a lot of modern death metal is pretty hyper focused on performance, who's being the most technical, the most
Yeah.
flashy.
But yeah, whether it be album covers or whether it be the music, everybody's just trying to out extreme each other, and I don't think people should be doing that. I think they should just be writing what they think is the best music they can come up with, rather than trying to beat
Mm,
the guy before. That's
mm,
my personal opinion, but
mm.
we're not
What do you
going to
think?
change. So I'm more than comfortable with that.
Mm. I'm interested to hear. I mean, I've got my own theories, Darren, but I haven't been in a death metal band for literally as long as I've been alive because you guys are as old as I am in terms of the band's longevity. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be armchair expert. I'm just a music journo guy, but I'm curious to hear your take on why that might be happening in the modern death metal scene as opposed to more folks sticking with their tried and true and being confident in backing that. What do you think?
Again, I think it's people maybe trying to reinvent the wheel. The fact of the matter is, death metal already exists. We don't need to invent it again.
Mm,
People. I don't know whether people are trying to be the first at doing this or the first at doing that. Death metal's here, man. It's already here. So let's just embrace it and let's just make some killer albums instead of. Maybe it's because there's so many bands. Maybe there's a feeling that they have to be different or they have to
mm,
be faster to make a difference.
mm,
For me, that's not the case. You just have to be the best at what you do. You don't have to
mm,
be different. You just have to be the best at what your craft is. And
mm.
if you're good enough, the cream will rise to the top. Simple as.
And I think the proofs in, oh God, here I go again with the food the food metaphors.
You're
Maybe I'm
making me
just
hungry,
hungry,
man.
dude. But the proofs in the pudding, essentially. I mean, you guys have Maryland Death Fest. You've got Varkin to look forward to.
Yeah,
You were speaking about Master before. You've got a tour with Jungle Rot and Master coming up. You
yeah,
guys are getting you guys are getting offers left, right, and center, interviews, tours, that sort of thing. So I think
yeah,
that does kind of speak to the fact that exactly what you're saying, like you guys are applying a trade and not necessarily focused on the outside environment. And it seems like, even this at this stage in your guys' career, that there's still a lot of interest and there's a lot of new interest as well, from what I
yeah.
think I've been seeing too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of young people at the gig. I mean, we went through a phase, I guess, in the 2000s where it seemed that it was all people our age that would come to the gig. Well, there's a lot of youngsters coming there now, and it's kind of cool. And I guess because Benediction is different to most other death metal bands. I mean, we're the sort of band if you walked into a bar and they were playing Benediction, you'd know it was us. So
Mm,
maybe we don't need to try to be
mm,
different. Maybe we've got a slight edge in that respect, whereas a lot of other bands sound the same.
mm.
Maybe we have a little edge there. Who knows? I'm just loving life, man.
Yeah, oh, that's great. That's great to hear. And in terms of how life's going, so you mentioned before that you guys are looking at packing a van and doing that for the first time in 20 years. What are your kind of your thoughts and feelings on that? Like, oh, you
And I,
feeling?
I'm, I,
Mm,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The only problem I really have, I mean, there's going to be 18 of us on the bus. I mean, that's going to be cool. That's going to be the
mm,
plus side. But I'm 6'4", so I struggle to fit in the bunk. Dave's 6'5", Nick's
right.
6'6". We're a bunch of big guys, man. So
Mm,
getting on the bus is going to be a little bit crowded. But you know what? It's going to be fun. There's going to be a few tins of beer on there, and we're going to have some laughs. And we don't take ourselves too seriously. We take our music super serious, but not
mm,
ourselves. If you see us on stage, we don't, we don't have makeup on, and we don't have stage sets and stage clothes. We just go up in our jeans and t-shirts and just play away and enjoy ourselves. So we don't take ourselves seriously. So on that side of it, the bus will be fun, but it's going to be. I think we have got 16 or 17 shows with one day off, so it's going to be
wow.
tiring, but it's going to be tiring, but it's going to be good fun, man. I'm a lucky
Mm,
boy.
mm. And how you feel? How's your sort of thoughts on Giovanni and Nick in terms of how things have been going with them on the live front since they joined the band?
Oh, it's going superb. I mean, Gio's an incredible drummer, man. I'm
Mm.
surprised we've not lost him to somebody else, but he's an incredible drummer. Like I say, the only problem we have is the distance that we're away.
Yeah.
And Nick filled in on bass when we lost Dan for a while, temporarily originally.
Mm,
And you want to hear that guy shred, man? That guy can play guitar. I tell you,
mm.
he's incredible. So at the end of the dozen gigs or whatever it was, we shook his hand and said, "Thanks, man. Thanks for your help." And he's like, "Is that it? Don't you need me anymore?" And I'm like, "Well, you're a super guitar player, man." And he's like, "But I've never had so much fun in my life, man." So we said, "Well, if you want to stay, you're more than welcome." And we all fit together. We're all a band of brothers. We live a
Mm,
distance away, but as soon as we see each other, it's all hugs and beers, and it's all good, man. It's all good.
mm. Fantastic. And he's the guitarist of Prolapse AD and Homicida, and I believe that Giovanni was also involved with that band as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's their little side project. I should listen to it really, but I'm old. I'm stuck in my ways. I still listen to Judas Priest. I don't listen to anything new.
Hey, Rob Halford would love to hear that you're still listening to him.
Still my favorite band, man.
Mm. What about some of your other favorite sort of like extreme metal or death metal bands? Have they stayed pretty like reasonably the same over the years? Like, do you have any particular tried and true favorites or any recent favorites that you
No,
have kind of picked
I
up?
guess it's the ones I mentioned. Masters and Massacres and Entombed. God rest his soul.
Mm,
Um, Bolt Thrower. I mean, Bolt Thrower were awesome. It's a shame they're never going to get back together. But yeah, it's all the mid-paced sort of stuff that you can understand and hear. I was
mm,
never really into the super fast blast beat. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Napalm. I love all the grindcore stuff. I love
mm,
all that, but
mm,
not necessarily all the super fast death metal. I was never really into that. We had this big America versus Europe death metal thing when it first started. Us and Carcass and Napalm, Bolt Thrower over
mm,
here, and Deicide, Morbid Angel, and everybody over the side of the water. And there was a bit of rivalry there. Theirs was more technical based, as was more
Mm,
feeling based, and it was I preferred and still prefer the punkier edge, the sort of the rawer edge sort of
mm,
music. So I still prefer that. But I'm an avid heavy metal listener. That's what's in my car every day, and I
mm.
still listen to that.
Mm. And that's an interesting point because that's something that, from my perspective too, I spend a lot of, well, I spend pretty much all day listening to death metal of various sorts and grind and stuff like that and pissing off my neighbors. Oh well, sucks to be them.
Good man.
Um, but that's something that did shine through with Ravage of Empires too. Like, it's an interesting point you make there is that I actually did notice that there's a lot of punky gang chants, which is kind of part of your guys' style, right? Like, and is
Yeah.
part of that old school canon is actually having like gang chants, but also even the vocals, as you said, it's not just a mess of it's crisp and it's detailed. Like you can actually, I think you guys have done well in with that mid tempo. It often gives those vocals a room to breathe. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We
Mm.
when we play festivals, there's often local sound guys that will just say that we're a breath of fresh air, because the bands
Right.
previous and the bands after are all so similar, and like I say, a wall of noise, and there's not much variation in their
Mm.
set. And then we come along, and then we do a fast one, a slow one, and we when we write music, we tend to we see what the music would look like. I know that sounds ridiculous, but
Mm.
when we write music, it's how it's gonna come across on stage, how
Yeah.
we're gonna feel playing it, how it's
Mm.
going to affect the audience. I mean, I love Death. I think that's just one of the most incredible bands ever. However, when we
Mm.
toured with them, we would go on stage, open up, the crowd would go absolutely nuts as we were doing on stage, and then when Chuck goes on stage, he stands still, and
Yeah.
the audience do the same, stand still and
Yeah.
watching in awe. I get that, but that's not
Mm.
the crowd that we want. We want the crowd that he's going nuts, that are jumping
Yeah.
off the PA stacks and jumping on stage and flipping themselves. That's what
Yeah.
we want, because that's what we're doing on stage. We're running around like freaking headless chickens.
Mm.
That's kind of more where we're at. So we're not necessarily into the technical and super fast stuff where people are just going to watch. I want
Mm.
people to just go nuts, man.
Yeah, fantastic. And is there any plans? I know it's a bit of a stretch with the cost of living crisis and all that, but as an Aussie, I gotta ask, you got any plans for an Aussie tour in the future?
Well, we've been trying to get this sus for many years, but I can confirm we are actually in negotiations at the minute with a guy to bring us over to Asia and Australia next summer.
Wow, very
Whether
nice.
that comes off, because we've had these offers before and then they fall through because, as
Yeah.
you say, the cost is just frightening. But we're trying to tie up with promoters in Manila and Philippines and stuff like that, so they can spread the cost of what's going on, and then we'll come down to. I would love to play ours, man. I would absolutely
Mm.
love to play ours. It's been well, we've never done it, so I mean, it's freaking ridiculous, right?
I think if you're going to get a bunch of brutes anywhere in a death metal pit in the world, it's going to be Southeast Asia and Australia. Not just,
Mate, that
I'm
would
not,
be
that's just
awesome.
not my nationalistic bias, but
Hey, mate,
yeah.
it's a million miles away from me, so I'd love to do it. I'd absolutely love to do it. Like I say, we had a few offers back in the 90s that fell through, and then
Mm.
we had one about 5 or 6 years ago, just before COVID, and that fell through. But
Mm.
this one's looking more positive. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we can come down and blow your heads off.
Absolutely. And I think before we wrap up, on that note too, I'm just curious because I mean, you guys formed, right? You guys formed amongst the punk scene,
Yeah.
DIY. You've seen technological changes, you've seen bands come and go, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's the how does it feel to be in the music industry at the moment? Because it's quite an unstable sort of environment and a lot of musicians are commenting on that. Do you feel similarly, or what are your kind
No,
of thoughts?
I don't necessarily think we do. I think the fact that we keep ourselves to ourselves, the fact that we followed our own blueprint, the fact that
Mm,
we never got in this business to make money, we never got in this business to be rock stars. We got in this business is because we just love playing what we're doing. Because
mm,
we've done that, I don't think we've ever put any expectations on ourselves or on the industry. We've just taken everything as it comes, and I think people kind of leave us alone now. And again, because we're different, we kind of do stand out a little bit. So,
mm,
maybe we have got that edge. But yeah, the music industry's shit, man. It's there's always someone's always got their hand in your pocket, trying to get some money out of it. But like I say, we never did it for money. So if we'd have done this gig for money, we'd have been out of this business years and years ago. But
Mm,
I still get super excited as soon as we get offered a gig anywhere, and I still get
mm,
excited to look at my own CD, and I'm on the back of that CD, ma.
mm.
It's incredible. I'm a lucky boy, man. And 37 years on, 36 years on since we started, I'm as happy now as I was then.
That's so fantastic to hear, Darren, and I hope that that stoke stays with you. And it sounds like I don't think it's going anywhere soon, and
No, mate.
I'm guessing all the other members of the band feel the same. So I'm really appreciating our chat today. So thanks for the time, Darren, and I'm going to let
You're
you
welcome.
go and enjoy some of that lovely sunshine.
Fantastic, mate. Thank you for your time. I appreciate all your support.
Not a problem. Thanks very much. You have a good one, Darren.
Thank you, mate. I hope I see you next summer.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
Catch you
buddy.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.